What's up everyone, it's your boy Infrar-Ed. Welcome to the Scout Reports. Today I bring you an anime review of Joker Game, episode 10, and I have to say that maybe we should call this series Bipolar Game because this was a rather enjoyable episode. I really did enjoy it because overall it felt like it just executed everything it needed to a little bit better. Even though it still followed the same by the numbers formula that we've seen in every episode so far, it was the material that we were given and how it was structured that actually made it work for this episode, and it can't help but just make you wish that every episode was either this way or if they had more time, like I've said every review now and again. That's getting repetitive. But without further ado, let's get down to the breakdown. I forewarn you, I don't know how long this review is going to be because there was a lot of detail in this episode, and if I leave anything out, it's going to pretty much not make sense in the end, as every breadcrumb leads up to the end game. So I'm going to take my time with this one. I might even pull out my straight up notepad so I don't miss anything. But with that being said, the episode starts off with two men in a bar. It is a blonde-haired gentleman and it is a Japanese guy. The blonde-haired man is basically looking for the head of the D agency, which we know is Lieutenant Colonel Yuuki. He receives the book from the dark-haired Japanese guy, and this book was the student enrollee list from the Imperial Army School. And in this list, he is looking for, just straight up looking for Yuuki, because he at least found out that this is where Yuuki came from as he went to school. However, he can't find his name on the list anywhere. What he does find is that there was a student by the name of Arasaki Akira, and Arasaki basically means Yuki. So he was able to unravel that this person was Yuki. However, he was a delinquent student in spite of having very high scores, and for some reason he was not enrolled in the school anymore. So as his breadcrumbs start to lay down, he starts to dig the trail to see what he can find about this Akira kid. Now he takes the book home, and I feel I need to say this because it's just one of those things that you can't leave things out in Joker Game because it always ends up leading to something. He's taking a look at this book, but he's looking at it in private, and the guy's wife comes in and he covers the book up. Now the wife brings him some watermelon, which she says is from his neighbor from next door, and the neighbor had a Japanese name that she couldn't quite pronounce. So he tells her how to pronounce the name, and when she hands him the watermelon, her ring falls off. She says, "Oh, sorry, dear me, I'm always losing my ring. It keeps falling off my finger." He says it's okay. He puts the ring back on. He enjoys the watermelon with her, and then she goes on her way. As soon as she leaves, he picks the book back up again as he's going to start looking into this Akira character, as the Arasaki family actually is like a royal nobility or a royal person. So he was wondering, if this guy is Yuki, why isn't he using his name, like, or his surname, or the clout that he needs to be royal? I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is, judging by the last name that Akira had, he should be like a prince or something. Basically, that's the best way I can explain it. So he starts to dig and investigate into that a little bit more, and he goes to the hometown of where Akira came up from. And this is where we find a little bit more about our person this week. The guy that's doing the investigating, he is from Britain. His name is Aaron Price, and he is saying that he is a reporter, and he's been in Japan for 10 years, and he's been all around the nation. He's been all around the country. He spent a lot of time in Tokyo, and his wife is actually Belgium. So we get a little bit of backstory on here. He goes and meets an old man who he asks about Akira directly and why Akira isn't using his name, as we find out that Akira was taken in by a British Viscount, and the Viscount is basically, you know, like royalty. So he was actually adopted by this man, and this Viscount, he's a widower. His wife died, he never remarried, and he had this illegitimate child because Akira isn't his child directly. However, he chose to bring this child home with him, and everybody's kind of wondering where this kid came from. A lot of people are wondering if he was like the love child of a geisha or somebody he just met on the street and he was trying to keep under wraps. But this kid is so well mannered and so calm and collective and so polite and very bright that those rumors start to get swept under the rug as people are now start to wonder, maybe this kid was either like the son of somebody from the military that the Viscount is taking in as a favor or a promise, or perhaps even he was the child of a princess or something, that maybe the Viscount wasn't slumming around in a geisha house but with another pack of royalty himself instead of his wife. So the Viscount starts to take Akira in and he trains him under his wing directly. He gets the best people that he can find from across the world to tutor him in every asset, from math to multiple languages to arithmetic to science to, of course, martial arts. And he excels so much so in every one of these arts that he even surpasses the Viscount at a very young age. At like 12 or 13, he was already besting him in fights and clearly acing everything that is put in front of him. And again, this Viscount was training this kid directly. So even though he wasn't his real son, he took him in and took very special care of him like he was his real son. Now, Akira was never officially registered as a part of the Arisaki family. That's why he didn't have the noble name later on in life. However, again, he was trained from ground up to be just like he was royalty. And after excelling through so much, he was enrolled into the Imperial Military School at the behest of his foster father at this point. And even in the school, he excels in everything. He was a top student in the school. However, he was expelled because of the fight that we saw at the very beginning, because the principal or the head of the school, whoever it was, felt that his methods, because the principal says that he was the one that used the dirty tactics by attacking the other students with the knife and using a low blow and throwing dirt in his eyes. Clearly his story was screwed up in order to make him look like a bad guy. Perhaps there was some jealousy there, just like everything else, just like how we don't know where Akira came from and it was never revealed who his parents was. We don't get the full story on this fight, but Akira ends up being expelled from the school because he was made out to look like the person who was the bad guy in this, thus getting him kicked out of the school. Now he's picked up from school by the Viscount's butler, who is revealed to be the man who we saw at the beginning of the episode with the British guy, with Prince, who was telling him information. He was a Japanese man with the dark hair, as he picks him up from school and saying, if these guys jumped you, why didn't you use a knife? I mean, you got expelled from this school. The principal is saying you were the one that was a coward because you attacked them. I gave you a Swiss Army knife, why didn't you use it? Akira simply says, if I would have used it, I would have killed them, because they already felt they had the advantage by jumping me. So thus I didn't do it. It's one of those things about me being a martial arts myself. My sensei always told me that, you know, you guys can go out there and kill somebody if you really wanted to, but you have to show restraint in order not to do that. And we see that with Akira. We see that as part of Colonel Yuki's methods, as well as, you know, killing somebody is the worst thing you can do, because someone's going to find out and it's going to lead back to you eventually. So the best thing to do is to get in and out as quick as you can. So you can see the spy mentality building up in him ever since he was little. Now, after he was expelled, we find out that he has not been back to Japan, with the exception of once, which was in 1912. He actually went over to England and he studied abroad there to the same results. And he came back in 1912 for the funeral of the Viscount after he died. And he actually got a big chunk of the money after the Viscount died, which he distributed between the servants of the house. He didn't keep any of the money for himself. He gave most of it to the servants and probably the rest to charity or something. They didn't say what he did with the rest of the money. However, he came back to put his adopted father to rest. He came back to spread the money within those, and he went back to Japan, because in Japan he had actually got the title of Duke in Japan. So even though he didn't get royalty as Asaki, he ended up getting it in England. So he still fared out in the end. He also grew to be a very handsome man. He was a very handsome man. He's a ladies' man, just like the Viscount before him. Ladies just flocked to this guy. And we know that already with Yuuki, with the times that we have seen him. He always kept a chick on his arm, or he's always charming his way through the things that you need to do. The reporter then finds out that in England, back in 1906, Yuuki was actually part of a clandestine spy group that predated MI6 by 3 years. So, in a sense, even though it wasn't confirmed, he was one of the very first agents of MI6, and the person that took him in as a guardian back then when he left for England at the age of 13 was the man by the name of Captain Mansfield Cumming, who, again, feel free to check me on this one because I don't know if this is accurate or not, but they say Cumming was the person or one of the people who started MI6. So Yuuki was there before one of the biggest spy agencies in the entire world was created, and he's been working for them all along. This also explains in episode, I believe it was episode 6, with the D agent that was in prison that had the sleeper agent that got him out, and with the spy master marks. That also explains how Yuuki was able to so easily decipher and know what they were going to do next and get his agent out so cleanly, because this guy was basically part of the origins of MI6. So he was already familiar with their ways and their methods, because he was trained directly by a legendary spy master who taught him everything that he needs to know at this point to price his surprise. Now, he's been digging around a little bit too much, and he rattles off a quote that was famous by Mr. Cumming by saying, "A dog is more useful than a spy once their cover is blown." Once this is said, ironically, his door is bust down by some Japanese members of the military police who says that Prince is under arrest for espionage, as we find out he wasn't a reporter, but he was a spy all along. Now that Price is in custody, he's being interrogated by these guards. They're threatening to kill him. They're threatening to kill his wife. When they mention his wife, one of the guards even starts to rub on his wedding ring, and they tell him, you know, being in espionage, being convicted for espionage gets you the death penalty. You might as well tell us what we know now. We got all the information. We have all the proof we need. However, we can lessen the blow on you a little bit if you tell us everything. Prince takes a deep breath. He takes a cigarette, and he says, "Fine, I'll tell you everything." He closes his eyes and he starts to reminisce about his wife. And there's a little bit of symbolism here, because at the beginning of the episode with the fight that we saw with Yuuki, we saw like a bug or something climbing on a tree. It was either when they showed about Yuuki or right before we were introduced to Prince. And it's a dead bug outside. That same bug has now died. As he reminisces, he thinks about his wife, and he's actually about to try to fight his way out, knowing that he would possibly die, but it's better than giving up the information that he's found. However, right before he's about to go in for action, another guard comes in and tells him that he's free to go, and they let him leave. Now that Prince is free, he's contemplating on who would actually go through all of this to save him. And he starts to rattle off the people that it could be, and it's not the butler guy from the beginning of the episode. So that only leaves one more person that he was heavily involved with, and that is the old man that he first asked about Akira. So he goes back to this old man. To his surprise, he asks where Akira is, and the old man tells him. He takes him upstairs, and we find out that Akira is actually an old man who has been bedridden in a coma for 20 years. You see, Akira was in World War I, and he got bombed by some gas. It was a very dangerous gas bomb that left him in a very bad state. And he asked the military police for help, for medical assistance after serving for them. However, they denied it. And the condition got so bad that it left him in his bedridden coma. It is this point that the old man who was telling Prince about everything said that he was approached by a man with a limp and a cane, who we know by now is actually Yuuki, who agrees to pay all the medical expenses, but on 2 conditions. Number 1, he's never to ask what this man's name is. Number 2, he told him if anybody ever asks about Asaki Akira, to tell him this exact story verbatim, as we find out that Prince has been played all along by, of course, Colonel Yuuki, who has fabricated this entire path that we have seen this entire episode. I mean, this guy, he is a spy in every sense of the word. I mean, it even had me fooled. I thought we were actually going to get a flashback about this character and learn a little bit more about him, but he's just as elusive as the D agents that he sends out, as what we've learned so far has been nothing but fake. Also, it was a means for him to get what he needed out of this mission as well. The old man notices that Prince's wedding ring is gone, to his shock as well. Comes to find out that the military policemen were actually D agency members, and when they rubbed his ring, they actually took his ring off. You see, this ring, inside it had a little strip of encoding that had the names and informants and goings of all the people that the butler guy had got a list of names of people with intel in Japan to give to the British. And that's what he had in the ring. and he was supposed to keep it safe. However, the D agency was able to take that ring from him, and that's why they let him go, because there was no need to kill him because they already had what they wanted. So with that being said, it looks like Colonel Yuuki comes out on top again. He is the master spy, gets what he needs, more intel for the D agency, as Prince then at this point goes outside and he kind of roughly remembers a quote that he thought of his own that says, in the last moments of a spy, when they start to, or in a dangerous moment or in a crossroads moment of a spy, when they start to see in their mind their partner or somebody that they really care about, it is at that point it is time for them to retire. As he sits down because he's failed his mission at this point, he is actually greeted by his wife, who tells him that a man in a cane told her where he would be. So Yuuki, in a way, I guess, of thanking him for at least giving him the information that he needed, was able to direct his wife back to him as he embraces his wife and sits down and thinks that even though he lost today, he still has his wife. There's no need for him to be a spy anymore. So, you know, you kind of get a good ending for him. But at the same time, we all got played as we thought we were finally getting the backstory on the man named Lieutenant Colonel Yuuki. However, we were just played just as well as they was, as he remains a man in the shadows with no information to be attained from him as well. So the joke was on us. We didn't learn anything about Yuuki, as I said over and over right now. And the episode as a whole, I must say, it was probably the most enjoyable episode since episode 1 and 2. I count that as one episode basically. And episode 7, which was the one on the train. Those are the most enjoyable episodes along with this one. We still got 2 episodes to go, so we'll see how things go with that. My only gripes about this episode is, even though it was enjoyable, again, just like I mentioned at the very beginning, it still followed the same paint by numbers type of format that every episode of Joker Game has had so far. However, keeping this mystery so guided actually made it work, and I just wish they could have did this type of thing more often in this episode, because we've seen it before, even though we did get a little treat by thinking that we were learning about Yuuki. So that's the episode in a nutshell. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments. Again, I really did enjoy it. If you liked the video, go ahead and drop it a like, and if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as I bring you guys content almost every day right now. So on that note, be sure to join me tomorrow as I review Bungo Stray Dogs. Thursday, we'll be reviewing Cabaneri, as well as bring you a live reaction to Hunter x Hunter and a One Piece manga review for Thursday. And then we start this hypeness all over again Friday with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, as we go right back to where we started. As I always say, you guys can be anywhere on YouTube right now, but you chose to listen to me, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for stopping by. It's your boy Infrar-Ed signing out with the Scout Report. See you soon.